Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today we'll try to tie things together with the virtues of intellect and emotion working together hand in hand. And the Halacha is called Love and Partnership, which is perfect for this parsha. We'll get into that at the end. So, on its own, every attribute is deficient. The discerning studying intellect is liable to lose the vitality that stems from its connection to the divine. For example, when um, yeshiva students learn about things that are never going to be practical in their life, and I'm not going to give any examples, but there's many, many pages of the 2,200 pages of the Talmud that discuss things that are very far-fetched. They're usually there to teach us certain rules and general ideas. For example, the understanding of the rabbis that a positive commandment overrides a negative commandment. And so there's many examples that are discussed, but just that general rule, even though the examples they give are so far-fetched, in my opinion, it's just sometimes we lose that connection to Hashem. And likewise, due to its constant involvement in principles and rules, it is liable to lose touch with real life. So, in contrast, emotional intuition, which we talked is more prominent in women, when it comes to organized life in the world, is likely to get carried away and err, straying from the precise law. So sometimes we might invite people that we shouldn't to our home, or do other things that are based on our emotion, but not on clear thinking that is related to halacha. Just for example, according to pure halacha, you're not allowed to hand bread to somebody who didn't wash for hamotzi. So if you're inviting somebody who isn't religious to your house, and you're doing it just out of kindness, there still has to be a keeping of the halacha, especially when there are younger children we're trying to mechanech them to wash their hands. So if this guest does not usually wash their hands, we need to, in a gentle way, make it so that they do, because otherwise we will be lacking in our education of our children. Consequently, the task of setting rules and principles was given to men, who are commanded to occupy themselves in Torah and to fulfill positive time-bound mitzvot, thereby laying the foundations of Jewish life. Women, on the other hand, express the general connection to faith and the tangible life of Torah, by virtue of which men connect to natural faith and better comprehend the value of the analytic principles. One of the ways that somebody told me is works for them is that the husband is like the foreign minister or the foreign secretary, where he deals with the things that are outside of the house, and the woman is the minister of interior affairs, where the things in the house, laundry and clothing and even the education of the children is given to her. On the surface, it seems that the task of men is more important on account of these virtues. They are worthy of the mitzvah of Torah study as well as the positive time-bound mitzvot, and consequently, men are given leadership and authority. We already saw that that's not really how it is. After all, one who is occupied with Torah principles must lead and guide others. However, looking deeper, we see that the value of women is actually greater. Although it is true that men are more engaged with principles and leadership, the building of a family, Beit Yaakov, which is the most significant element in life, was placed in the hands of women. Moreover, the purpose of creation is to receive divine illumination within actual life and experience it with the utmost intensity. Women are more attuned to this. And so this whole chapter is in connection with the idea of which mitzvot women are obligated to or not. So that's why it's a very long introduction, but I think it's important to learn this third chapter, and then next week we'll start the fourth chapter. And specifically because of women's quality of humility, she is able to receive the divine and absorb the illumination that stems from Torah study and from positive time-bound mitzvot. And I've been to many, many Shabbos tables where the women and daughters, their eyes light up when people say divrei Torah and make sense to them in a kind and soft way. This in turn enables her to express her great virtues. It is thus no coincidence that men's virtues are more noticeable, while women's are internal and concealed. The king's daughter is all glorious within, kol kvudavat melech pnima. This also allows us to understand the meaning of the bracha of Shasani Kirtzono for women. When the uniqueness of each sex is blurred or subjected to struggle and hostility, men and women are unable to make each other more productive. Young couples have difficulty building their lives, their families, and existing family structures deteriorate and collapse. On the other hand, when we understand the value of each sex, thereby allowing for a greater connection and love, the divine presence dwells with the couple. Faith and joy increase in the world, and the intellectual and emotional elements develop and integrate together. The people of Israel, with all of its families, thus continue to grow, speaking God's praise in the world. And if you remember earlier this week, we talked about how the women were not involved in the sin of the golden calf, but even more important, they weren't involved in the sin of the spies. So there were a lot of widows and orphans in the desert, but these women believed truly that they will go to the land of Israel and conquer it. And so, even though they were without their husbands because they died because of the decree of the 40 years, they still um, went on with it. And the most famous example is the daughters of Tzlofchad, who demanded to have their father's inheritance after him dying in the desert. So, as today is Friday, the only time that I know of that it says in the Torah that a man loved his wife was with Yitzchak. We read about it 2 weeks ago. In Parashat Va'yeitze, it says, "Vayivia Yitzchak oel Sarah imo," that Isaac then brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he took Rebekah as his wife. Isaac loved her and thus found comfort after his mother's death. There's many other times that it says that people loved each other, and even in our parsha, but this is a specific when it says he loved her, meaning that the husband and wife shared that love. And so the first example in our parsha is when Jacob actually first saw Rachel. This would not fly today according to Jewish law because she was a total stranger and did not know Jacob at all. In those days, even if there was some kind of communication through post between the Haran and Israel, Canaan, it's not likely that they ever met each other. So it says when he first saw Rachel, he rolled over the stone, and then in verse 11 it says Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel, and he kissed her. And then afterwards, after they get married, it says that that he verse 20. Vayavo gam el Rachel vayehav gam et Rachel mila'ah. So it says he came to Rachel, meaning to consummate the marriage, and he loved also Rachel more than he loved Leah. And that reminds us a little bit about how Rebekah loved Jacob and Isaac loved Esau. So I'm not comparing for the sake of comparing it, just that, again, it doesn't say specifically that he loved his wife. That's only Isaac and Rebekah. And then Shem told Moses to write in verse 31 the word snu'ah, which is terrible because you don't have to always hate somebody just because you don't love them. There's a lot of in-between gray areas, but finally, the house of Jacob was built through these two sisters who recognized how immense their contribution is to the world. And just end with something fun fact, as they say. All 13 children that are named, 12 are named in our parsha, and Benjamin is in next week's parsha. They were named by the mothers. Even when it says with Levi that Leah said, "Atai levei she elai," so she gave the reason. But then it says, "Al ken karash mo Levi." Rashi says against the pshat that Al ken karash mo Levi is Hashem, but it means that Hashem agreed with Leah's reasoning for calling him Levi, and she named her daughter Dinah. And even in next week's parsha, when Benjamin is named, he's named Ben Oni by Rachel, and then Jacob changed his name to Binyamin. So 13 children with all of this love and the combination of the people working together as a perfect family. I mean, nobody's perfect, but this is like such an amazing example. And Yaakov was really worried about how his father and grandfather had a child that didn't follow the way, and so it only worked because of this love and partnership. And we'll stop here and open up for questions.